One of the pioneer families that started in the 1880s is the Apperson Gilgrease Family. They are still farming the land that they purchased in 1881. They're still farming the land just south of Armona. One of the best known names in Hanford is Horatio Lacey and Lacey Milling Company. Lacey Milling Company was here from over 100 years ago and just recently closed down, unfortunately. Now, Lacey was known as the grand old man of Hanford, and he and his sons not only built the mill and ran it, but he became a very large contributor and very important person in town. At one point, they sold land, which is now Lacey Park, but they actually sold it to the school district, and it became the first location for the high school. Lacey Milling was located over on 5th Street, and in order to have a full mill operation, Horatio Lacey arranged to have electricity brought in from Visalia and built a substation across the street from the mill. They formed the Lacey Power Company, and actually that is the reason that Hanford has electricity. Now, O.M. Lacey, his son, and several others in the family were inventors too, and gained several patents for their electrical switching equipment. Now, what's an interesting sidelight is that Hanford is currently serviced by the Southern California Edison Company, while the rest of Kings County is Pacific Gas and Electric. And so the question is why? And it leads directly back to the fact that Lacey Power Company was sold to Mount Whitney Power and Electric, and Southern California Edison then bought that company, which is why Edison has the city of Hanford for its utilities. Okay. We are very, very indebted to the Lacey and Lendrum families for allowing us to display a lot of their family memorabilia dealing with the Lacey Milling Company. Henry Cousins was one of the prominent people in Hanford. He and his partner first began as owners of a drugstore. And an interesting story is that Helen Sullivan, who lent us all of these artifacts, had brought in this picture of the Caterpillar tractors. And she showed me the picture up here, and when I was over at her house, I saw this shadow box of the drugstore bottles. And so I was able to convince her to do that. But Cousins and his partner, after they had established themselves as druggists here in town, were interested in cars. And so they opened a garage. And at one point in 1906, Cousins actually had the land speed record of 127 miles an hour that was set on a beach in Florida. And we have the picture of his car here. They also became involved with farming and at the lake bottom, and one of the first large pieces of land is still known as the Cousins Track. But besides being farmers, they also had the Cousins Tractor Company, which was located right here on 7th Street. So, prominent family, not only with respect to farming, as well as many other civic endeavors. Okay, so a very important part of our county history is the multi-generational families that have farmed sometimes from the 1800s, several of which include Niece Hanson and J.B. Boyette, E.C. Salyer, Ralph Gilkey, and also until the 1940s there was a large population of Japanese farmers. Now the laws in the United States and in California before World War II, in many cases barred the Japanese from owning the land that they farmed. And many of them would be out on the farms that they did not own. They would live there and they would farm. Some exceptions were made, and those Japanese farmers that did have the right to own farms, all of that was taken away at World War II when the federal government, Franklin Roosevelt, issued Executive Order 9066, which required almost 120,000 Japanese to be relocated into internment camps from the West Coast into Arizona and other places. And so as a result, we do have a list of the families that were farmers at the time, and a few of them are still here. But many of the Japanese who were interred did not come back. There were over 400 Japanese from Kings County, and only about a third of them came back to Kings County. We also have a display here on Lyman Griswold. Now, the Griswold family has been farming for generations, but Lyman is noted because he really is, or was, known as the father of California water law. He was an expert. He was relied upon throughout the state, and also argued successfully a water rights law in front of the California Supreme Court. Back in the 1800s in particular, large parts of Kings County were dry farmed. In other words, they were grazing and wheat was being raised. At one point between Lemoore and Coalinga, apparently there were more sheep than any place else in the country. And so we'd like to thank both the Burris Park Museum and the Sarah Mooney Museum for loaning us some of these artifacts. We have the spinning wheel. We have a 100-year-old woven blanket. Two really interesting artifacts that were loaned to us by Larry Anacleto are the shepherd's crook and also the two-person machine that was used to shear sheep. And what would work is one person would crank it and the other person would shear the sheep. And so we're grateful for being able to display those as well.
In this display, we have several agricultural implements that were interesting to us as we were putting this show together. I'll point out a couple things. These were all lent to us by a local multi-generational farming family, so we're very grateful to be able to display these things. Some of my favorites, this scale with the galvanized cylinder at the end was actually a chicken weigher. So the chicken would be put into the cone with its head sticking out the narrow part, and you would weigh the chicken to know how much to pay for it. And then it also served as a way to cut the chicken's head off so that you could then take your chicken home and prepare it. So a multi-use tool right there. The red instrument down here is a corn cob grinder, so it would remove the kernels from the corn. And then probably the star of our show is this right here. This is a hog oiler, and the hog oiler moved like this. It was filled with oil in the drum, and then pigs would rub up against the drum to spread the oil on their bodies. This acted as a natural sunscreen and a natural insect repellent, and it must have felt good to those pigs. And this thing is really heavy, but it's in great condition. Could be used today. Also in the display is a bull blinder, which is this metal and leather contraption. It was placed on the eyes over the face of a bull while cows were being milked in the field, because back at the early 20th century, cows were milked out in the open field. So They would put the blinder on the bull so that they wouldn't charge the people as they were milking. And the bull would still be able to look down, but not to look out to charge at the people in the field. We also have on the top of the display a sausage stuffer. So this is a very heavy machine made of cast iron, where the pork would go in the top, and then there was a crank, and the casing went on the end, that end spout right there, and then the sausage was coming out into the casing, and that's how they made sausage. In this display, we have some old dairy implements that would have been used around at the turn of the 20th century at local dairies. First, in the middle is a dairy milk chiller. We think that the metal piece was chilled. Maybe it was in a freezer or had ice on it, and then milk would be run over it to keep it cool. We also have top here a surge milker, which would have been used in about 1920 to 1930, and it was used at Van Beek Dairy, an early machine for machine milking of cows. Earlier than that would have been this dairy stool with a belt, where the farmer would have the stool wrapped on his belt, and as he went from cow to cow, could then just immediately sit down, milk the cow, and move on to the next one without having to pick up and just be hands-free while he's doing his job. And then we have some dairy cans. One of them, this one is from Bellbrook Dairy. And here we have a milk can from Superior Dairy. It says Superior Hanford on it. And up top, we have a centrifugal milk tester. So the milk would go in and it would spin, and they were testing the milk for various issues. In this display, we show some primitive farm tools, some early farm tools from before the 20th century. These would have been used by the earliest settlers to Kings County who were farming the land, like this very large wooden plow and a seeder. One of these seeders, you would have worn it and then been able to walk and spread the seeds. But very interestingly, here is an antique bee smoker where a beekeeper could smoke the hive to calm the bees before he harvested the honey. Here we have a cash register from September of 1910. We actually know from this National Cash Register that this specific pattern is called the Dolphin Scroll, and the cash register has a serial number on it, which we were able to look back through records and determine that based on that serial number, we know this machine was made in September 1910, so this is an very early 20th century cash register, which could have been at a store like the Lemoore General Store, which here we have a ledger book from the D.B. & Co. store in Lemoore that goes from December of 1886 to September of 1887. Here we have it open to a page from March 1887, and you can see the names of people in Lemoore who were coming to the store and buying their goods. And we can see that Dr. Chow bought eggs for 25 cents, and Mrs. Bradley bought spuds for 85 cents and soda for 50 cents. And it's just such a beautiful record of life 100 years ago in the county. Their beautiful handwriting and just this wonderful record book that's been so perfectly preserved.
Burris Park is a county park in the northeast part of the county. It's part of the original land that was farmed by David and Julia Burris. They donated the land to the county, and it is also where the Burris Park Museum is located. As we've mentioned, many of the artifacts that we've seen here were loaned to us by the Burris Park Museum. The Burrises had a very large herd of cattle, and in later years, Burris bred racehorses, and he specialized in pacers and trotters. And by their generosity, we are able to benefit from their being pioneers here in the county. Well, thank you for watching part 1 of the History of Kings County Agriculture exhibition. In September, we will be opening part 2 of our Kings County History of Agriculture exhibition. And in that part 2, we'll be focusing on issues that affect not only agriculture, but the community as a whole today. There are so many issues that have to be addressed in order to continue having a thriving agricultural industry, whether it's dealing with groundwater, whether it's dealing with regenerative agriculture, whether it is also focusing on and appreciating the community groups that are involved with agriculture today. So even though part 1 is closed, until we open part 2 in September, you're able to see all of our prior exhibitions on our website at carnegiemuseumofkingscounty.org. We have also added a walking tour of downtown Hanford, and there are plenty of other virtual displays as well. So we'll hope to see you in September when we open part 2 of the Kings County History of Agriculture.